name of our principles that we are restricting some of the rights that you may have, because in fact what you are proposing or what you are practicing is against our values. So this is the process that we have. For example, you spoke about France and you spoke about Switzerland, and this is what I was saying at the beginning. We are here dealing with something which has to do with consistency, not to impose, and also to be clear as to the model. The model is saying what? The model is saying, and you know, we are differentiating sometimes between the US model and the French model by saying the secular process in the States was, in fact, to protect the religions from the influence of the state. While in France, it's exactly the opposite. It was to protect the state from the influence of the religions. Okay? This has to do with history, but at the end of the day, it means that we are distinguishing authorities. So the point was what, in fact, is that when we are consistent with the principles, is to distinguish authority, and the state has no word and nothing to say about what is happening within religions. But the state should protect freedom of conscience and freedom of worship. This is it. And not to indulge into something which is a religious discussion from within. And then what we have now is people saying, you know, we have a problem with Muslims. Because for the first time, it's not the same migrants that we had before. The immigrants of today, they want to change the very system. They want to change our culture. So if you listen to some of the people in France, they were saying, oh, these Muslims that are coming now, and they are 5 million, they want to change the very essence of our society. In my country, in Switzerland, the UDC, the Swiss People Party, are saying exactly the same. In fact, you are not true Swiss citizen. You want to change the society. Why? Because the very essence of your religion cannot fit within our tradition. This is what they are saying. So in fact, they are projecting onto you something that they think, and then in the name of what they are projecting, they are changing the principles of the game, or the rules of the game, or as Tariq said once, the rules of the game have changed just after July the 7th. And here, I was once with someone from this party in Switzerland, and he was saying, you want to change law? I said, I'm sorry. I'm telling you that the current situation, the current constitution, we don't have a problem with it. You want to change the law. You want to make it more restrictive. And at the end, this is what happened after the votation. It's to change the law to make it more restrictive, to protect ourselves from this perception that we have that the Muslims are not going to fit in. So this is the problem. In fact, we speak about equal citizenship. We spoke about a system, a framework with rules, and some parties now, they are ready to make it more restrictive because they are scared of the new system. They don't trust them. So this is, for example, in France, for 15 years, I heard people telling me, you want to change the law of the country. Say, we don't. And now I'm saying, and during the last discussion on the burqa and the niqab in France, I asked the parliamentarians, say, who changed the law the 15th March 2004? It's not us. You changed the law. At the end of the day, you are changing the law. We are not. And you are making it more restrictive to let the Muslim understand that they are not inside the us that you are now drawing. There is an us which has something which has to do with the culture, not with the law. Because if you were to stick or to abide by the law, you wouldn't change. It's not a problem to go in school with a headscarf as long as you respect all the teachings and all the disciplines. You go for all the courses. So the point here is what is happening, exactly what I was mentioning with Dutch reality, is that we have something which has to do, you know, there is a sociologist, Willem Schinkel, in the Netherlands, who is speaking now about moral citizenship. He's saying not only we had a citizenship which was based on rules, now we have a moral. So you have to fit in our moral understanding of what citizens means. And I would say that he's not wrong on that. We have a problem here. So some societies are ready to be more restrictive, and forget about equality because of the perception they have of Islam. And just one point very quickly, in the discussion that you had in this country about, for example, you know, the Sharia court, I myself was not supporting something which was, you know, arbitrary, you know, councils and things like this. I was saying Muslims don't need that. But in fact, what the Muslims were saying, asking here in this country, was what the Jews and the Christians had already. So in fact, they were asking the same rights. But this was perceived, oh, the Muslims, they want specific laws. But in fact, it was the same as others. So when you are asking the same rights, it's perceived as you want specific law. So I was struggling on both fields by saying, in fact, they are asking the same rights as the other, and they shouldn't be blamed for that. But I was saying to the Muslims, but we don't need it. We don't need that. You are making a mistake. You just abide by the common law, and this is enough. Don't go that way for two reasons. First, we don't need it, and you are going to be misunderstood. And we were. By the way, we were completely misunderstood.
No, may I ask a question? Sorry? I just want to ask a question. Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Ramadan, I just wanted to ask you about one specific question. I mean, you spoke so beautifully and eloquently about, you know, international perspective on fellow Muslims in that country and then international. But what about the other kind of, the other side of the coin? You know, for example, what happens within our community? What about the intra-community fabric? For example, we go to a mosque to pray, and then we find that there's a coterie that controls the welfare of the mosque in the name of halal and haram. And it's a very, very political coterie, and very learned people, and then we have, you know, very average Muslims like us who just want to go, who are extremely scared of God, who have a lot of, you know, guilty feelings to express and then vent and then come away. But then we are up against a wall that kind of collects money and then usurps funds and is actually committing atrocities. And what I'm asking is, do you have a solution, please, for this kind of corruption? And what could we, how could we undo that? And we are just looking at international and big governments. When we are corrupt within, how do we kick them out? So your solution, please.
Okay. How are we going to deal with corruption outside when there is corruption inside? You may refer to something which is specific to your city, and I would say something about that. I'm very cautious when it comes to judging what the people are doing. Because when you have people for years, they have been committed to build mosques and to run mosques, it's very difficult to come and say, oh, you are all corrupted and it's all about corruption. Because I prefer to start with, you know, the positive judgment, which is taking into account the fact that there is sincerity to do this work. Now you may disagree with the way it's run or the way it's done, and sometimes you can see that things are wrong. And it happens, of course, always. And some people, they started a job and they want to stay. And some people, they get money and they are doing things. It happens. Now, how inside we should also be able not to sit down and to blame the people and say, you are all corrupt, so there is nothing that we can take out of you and nothing that we can do, to something which is a more constructive attitude. And the constructive attitude is, for me, three things. The first is always, it's always to acknowledge what was done and to thank the people for what they are trying to do, which is a spiritual, individual, collective attitude. And some people, they build mosques. You know, the first generations, and they build mosques. And still now, the people that we have, we build, they are running, and that's good, and we acknowledge this. Now, there are things that are done within the mosque